This is the third of my Amiga memories videos, and it's just about some games that were very influential in my life, I guess. It sounds strange that a game could be influential in someone's life. Sounds a little bit silly, really. Amiga games are very, very special because they're created by small teams of people. There are plenty of games for the Amiga that are only created by 1 or 2 people, and others that sort of had 5, 6, 7 people. But none of these, at least at the time when I was using Amiga, none of the massive games we have now with teams of 100 part-time people and no creative control and no direction, and those are just games made by committee basically, and they're lowest common denominator, and I personally have no interest in any of those. And I've looked at some of the old Amiga games recently using an emulator, and they've all stood the test of time, I have to say. So the game that's aesthetically influenced me, I guess, more than anything else was Shadow of the Beast 2 from Psygnosis. That came with my computer. It's set in the land of Karamoon. I took that name, Karamoon, when I first needed an email address, probably 17 years old or something. So a couple of, maybe I was still using the Amiga then, but not so much. The game is a true work of art. The music is beautiful. The graphics are incredible. The depth of the game, at least the suggested depth, and it's a game set in a fantasy world. I'm not someone who reads fantasy fiction or anything like that, but it's just a wonderful, wonderful game, and it was very, very difficult. It's sort of an action game, but with adventure elements in that you have to solve puzzles. I've always been more drawn towards adventure games, but Shadow of the Beast 2 was one of those first games I saw that really, the intro sequence, for example, of the game was better than most games. The game over screen showing a man being resurrected in the sunlight again, or by lightning, I guess, better than most games. So that was a huge influential game. I think probably the first game I saw, I saw a whole bunch of games at the same time, but Kid Gloves, which is a platform game, which had amazing sampled sound in the beginning, and it was a very, very simple, you'd call it a boulder dash platform game, because as you run along things fall past you and blocks fall down. But it's the first time I'd ever seen a platform game, and the thing that was so engrossing about it was you could collect coins and spend them at the shop. And this was at the time I was a child when I probably didn't get any pocket money, and just the idea that you could buy things in the game to then make the game play more interesting or easier was fantastic. And another game I saw very early on was called Nightbreed, the interactive movie. There were 2 versions of the Nightbreed game, an action version, or an arcade action version, and the interactive movie one. And again, aesthetically, it influenced me a lot. The graphics were not particularly good compared to something like Shadow of the Beast 2, but the idea that you could go around in this world that was so made for you, and you could explore around, and you could make decisions. The main part of the game was based on a map where you could drive around by clicking on road junctions, and your car would drive, and occasionally you'd get stopped by a roadblock, or you had to get petrol, get gasoline. So there was a fuel gauge, and you'd used to be told at the beginning where you went meant to go to. You had to navigate somewhere without hitting too many roadblocks. And when you got to a roadblock, you could either turn around, although that wasted fuel, or you could ram the roadblock. But occasionally when you ram a roadblock, it would say your attempt failed and you'd end up in prison or whatever, or in the lunatic asylum. But there were lots of other aspects of the game. That was only one small part of it, but even that part was pretty impressive. And then I played Outrun, the arcade driving game, a lot. I remember being very impressed by the music. Very kind of Japanese 1980s music, although I didn't know that at the time. It was a Japanese idea of California late 1980s music. I guess Outrun is probably 87, 88. But just the contrast between where I was living in a very, very dull, small British city with not much opportunity and certainly no glamour, playing a car racing game where you're driving along by the beach in California just was incredible. You know, I'd never seen that much sunshine. Sounds a little bit pathetic saying it now, actually. But the driving games that really influenced, I guess, me and my friends, or that we really enjoyed most, were the Lotus Trilogy. There were these games called Lotus Turbo Challenge, Lotus Turbo Challenge 2, and Lotus 3. And they had probably the best music almost in a game. I remember in the second game you could choose the music, and there was an animation of a CD player in a car. And this was a time when almost nobody had CD players at home. But the games are very, very good, very, very well made. Beautiful, beautiful graphics, wonderful intro sequences, just the opening music, very, very powerful, dramatic music. And they're just wonderful games, really, really wonderful. We played them for hundreds of hours, my friends and I. Another game I was hugely drawn to and played for possibly hundreds of hours was Frontier Elite 2. This is a sequel to Elite. I never played the original Elite on the 8-bit computers, but I did play Frontier Elite 2 on the Amiga, and it's a space trading game with action elements as well. You get attacked by pirates and things, and you could get attacked by the Imperial Navy or the Federal Military or whatever. So you had sort of two military forces that would attack you in various parts of the galaxy. But it was a lovely game because, again, it was one of the few that I bought or that I got as a birthday present. Most of my games were copied. It was pretty expensive, I seem to remember, but it did have a good manual. It had, and the manual was sort of written not so much as a games manual, but as a manual as if you were really flying the spaceship. It had a book of short stories called Life on the Frontier. But one thing it had was a big map of the universe, of part of the universe rather, and that was amazing. That you could look up places on the map and then actually fly to them and do hyperspace leaps if you had enough fuel and that kind of thing. And it was one of those games that never ends. There's no levels, there's no point scoring, so I found it very, very engrossing. Similarly, I really liked adventure games. The most popular adventure games for the Amiga are Secret of Monkey Island 1 and 2. I played them a lot, but they didn't really match my sense of humour. But I enjoyed the adventure game aspect of them a lot. And my friend Tim was, I think, playing them in parallel to me, and he was often better at solving the puzzles than I were. Also, he'd often give me tips on how to get past things. But an adventure game I really did get into with my friend who's a year older than me, Edward, was Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. And it's one of those games that has really reached the level of perfection. With the only problem being, I think it was 11 discs, so there was a lot of disc swapping. Oh, if only we had had a couple of extra floppy drives. Yeah, so playing that for hours and hours and hours with Edward, solving the puzzles, so much fun. Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis is, always people say it's a pity the game was never made into a film, because there were games of the other films, or at least of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. But Fate of Atlantis was never made into a film, and it would have been such a fantastic film because it was about going to the ancient city of Atlantis, going hunting down the ancient city of Atlantis, a race against an enemy to get there. But it was a real work of art. The music, the way the music changed with the atmosphere, the puzzles were all very good. So much fun, and yep. So those are sort of I think 7 of the games that I really remember playing a lot. There were hundreds of others. Games I really enjoyed playing with my friends, probably California games. I have another friend called Edward who's the same age as me, and he was a big fan of California games, and we go to his house and maybe some other friends would come. California games is multiplayer, but you don't play at the same time, you take it in turns. So I think it would support up to like 8 players or something like that, and you put in your name, and he'd always choose the name Casio Cool. You choose your sponsor, he'd always choose, there was sort of Casio, Ocean Pacific, I forget the other sponsors now. And California Games had a set of, it was sort of made up of 5 mini games, I think 5 or 6 mini games. So there was surfing, BMX riding, roller skating, half pipe, footbag, and frisbee. And those are 6 games. I can't think of anything more. And you get points awarded. Either it's a point scoring game, or you get points awarded at the end by the judges. It's a fantastic game for a group of people, and you could easily spend a good couple of hours just playing that. I would love to get back into that kind of thing actually, if I could find some friends who are interested and get it working on one of the emulators, because it was really a lot of fun. Other multiplayer games, we played Dino Blasters, which was playing at the same time. Final Fight, which is a side-scrolling punch 'em up game. Another game that again probably influenced me a lot, and I played a lot with my friend Edward, who's a year older, was F-19 Stealth Fighter. That was the first game that taught me a bit about Middle Eastern geography. And again, it was one of the few games I bought, so in all the time I had my Amiga, I probably copied 100 games or more, and maybe bought 10 bits of software altogether. I bought a text adventure called Deadline. I didn't know it was a text adventure when I ordered it from the mail order company, but actually I'm glad it was, because again that really got me interested in text adventures. So those are some games that meant a lot to me. Please write your memories down in a comment, especially on YouTube is good, and please visit my cancer fundraising page, which is www.matthewdons.org. That's MATTHEW, D for Delta, O for Oscar, N for November, S for Sarah.org. matthewdons.org.